Hi, welcome to JockJut Manhwa. Today we are starting with another new manga. But before that, let me ask you first, have you ever read a manga or manhwa that changed your perspective on something? What was it? Share your opinions at the comment section below. And now let's begin. We're telling the story titled, I Grew the Greatest Home Garden with My Cultivation Skill. Our tale begins in the humble town of Arcel, where an anxious nudge from her older brother Gio rouses a sleepy Senna. Today marks the festival of the descending gods, a cherished occasion celebrated once a year when the divine beings are believed to grace the earthly realm with their presence. It's a time of grand celebration, especially for those turning 15, who are promised blessings from the divine. These blessings, known as gifts, can range from skills for exploration, trade, to crafting, randomly granted by the gods. Despite Gio's efforts, Senna, known for her occasional bouts of stubbornness, reluctantly rises from her slumber and lazily gets dressed. Both siblings, born of different mothers, are on the cusp of their 15th year. Their father's passing a decade ago left them to navigate life's journey together. As they make their way through the bustling streets, Senna eagerly ponders the gifts they might receive, while Gio quietly hopes for an adventurer's skill. His dreams of following their father's footsteps as an adventurer run deep, but also hides a deeper motive. Though Senna has heard Gio's dreams countless times, she remains his steadfast supporter, even if he dismisses her encouragement as mere flattery. Joining the throngs of worshippers at the town square, they bow their heads in prayer as the first light of dawn breaks, a time-honored tradition to receive the gods' blessings. Gio, amidst the shimmering rays of sunlight, feels a divine presence, and a goddess takes notice of him, granting him an unexpected gift. As he awakens from his trance, he's surprised by his gift. Around him, others have also received their blessings, including Senna, who excitedly shares her newfound skill, favor of the sword, tailor-made for adventurers. When asked, Gio hesitates to reveal his own gift, home garden, met with Sina's bewildered gaze. In the distance, a laughter bursts out, drawing Gio's attention to his childhood friends, Annie and Sifa, who overheard him. Though Senna offers words of solace, reminding him that the value of a gift lies in its wielder, Gio's spirits remain dampened. Sifa and Annie, older and already gifted, possess skills ideal for adventuring, leaving Gio feeling isolated, especially with Annie's teasing about his unspoken desire to adventure alongside Sifa. Despite Sina's reassurances, Gio's heart weighs heavy, grappling with the weight of his aspirations and the sting of incoming ridicule from his peers. With a useful gift for adventuring now in her possession, Senna found herself at a crossroads. Encouraged by her friends Annie and Sifa to join their party, she turned to her brother Gio for guidance. Gio, unable to participate himself, could only watch as his sister hesitated, seeking permission from his big brother. Advising her gently, he urged Senna to seize the opportunity now that they were of age. Swallowing her uncertainty, Senna bravely accepted the invitation, promising Gio that she would earn enough for a life of leisure. Gio sighed in disbelief at his sister's ambitious goal, a mixture of pride and sadness as he saw her off into the unknown. He couldn't help but wish he could embark on this adventure too, especially alongside Sifa. Returning home, he contemplated the seemingly mundane gardening skill he had acquired. As he reaches their yard, a surprising notification interrupted his thoughts. A voice asked, "Would you like to designate a garden?" Startled, Gio looked around, finding no one nearby. Could he be hallucinating? The voice persisted, "Would you like to designate a garden?" On the overgrown yard, a virtual outline of a garden plot seems to have appeared, resembling an object placement. Despite his confusion, Gio confirmed. Suddenly, the virtual garden materialized before him, and a notification proclaimed, "A garden has been designated." To his amazement, a real garden plot had appeared out of thin air. Examining the soft, rich soil, Gio received another notification. "Gio's garden home level 1, would you like to start cultivating?" He grew even more confused as he was now presented with a list of vegetables and their quality levels. Despite his doubts, Gio decided to test it out with potatoes. The system prompted him for the quantity and location, and cultivation began with a glow of light absorbed into the soil. Amused yet skeptical, Gio assigned various crops to the remaining spaces in the garden. Although he couldn't comprehend the process fully, he didn't stress about it and leaves them to grow. He returns an hour later to check on them, but to his shock the garden had totally changed. All the crops had matured instantly, fat and beautiful compared to the usual months-long growth cycle. The harvest was imminent, and just as Gio pondered this abundance, the system asked, "Would you like to harvest the crops?" Without much thought, Gio confirmed, and the garden rustled as the vegetables detached from the soil. In a swift motion, the crops were uprooted and automatically grouped in baskets, a bountiful harvest ready for Gio to enjoy. Gio found himself overwhelmed by the sudden whirlwind of events. The system, the instantaneous creation of garden plots, the ease of cultivation, and the seamless harvesting process. Each occurrence left him baffled, one after the other. Yet, amidst it all, he couldn't help but appreciate the convenience of not needing to soil his hands in the process. His heart brimmed with gladness and excitement. The final test lay in determining the edibility of the crops. With their plump, seemingly ordinary appearance, Gio dared to taste a tomato. To his astonishment, its deliciousness surpassed his expectations. With joy, he indulged in another. Could the other vegetables be equally delightful? Meanwhile, Senna and her companions ventured out of town on their own adventure. It was Sina's first time leaving the familiar surroundings, and she marveled at the vastness of the plains. Sifa explained that their mission for the day was to explore a nearby dungeon, and the mention of possible treasures sparked excitement in Sina's eyes, fueled by the prospect of getting rich. Being Sina's first venture outside, she needed to familiarize herself with wielding a sword for combat. Annie suggested starting with practice against nearby weak monsters. A lone goblin lurked within range, perfect for Sina's training. As Annie and Sifa offered guidance, Senna attempted her first sword swing. To their astonishment, despite her awkward posture, the blade moved too swiftly for their eyes to track, leaving them in awe. Innocently, Senna smiled, unaware of the quality of her swing, even seeking feedback from her companions. Before further advice could be offered, Senna dashed towards the goblin, her confidence unwavering. Though lacking combat experience, she remained steadfast in her belief of victory. The goblin anticipated her advance, hurling a rock in her direction. Yet, with clarity, Senna effortlessly intercepted the projectile and swiftly decapitated the goblin. She rejoiced from her first combat and noticed something shimmering on the grass. It was a fragment of a magic stone dropped by the goblin. Sifa and Annie could only stare in shock as their novice companion dispatched the goblin with gleeful ease and a carefree attitude. Sina's courage to confront danger head-on, her swift reflexes to block the projectile, and her unwavering resolve to act without hesitation suggested they had stumbled upon an exceptionally talented party member. That evening, Senna returned home to find Gio in the kitchen, just putting the finishing touches on a delicious dish made from his recent harvest. Gio was taken aback to learn that Senna had encountered her first monster that day. Sina's carefree nature worried Gio, knowing the dangers of being an adventurer. However, her innate abilities gave him some reassurance that she could defend herself. With Sifa and Annie by her side, he trusted they wouldn't let her face danger alone. As Senna tasted her brother's dish, she was pleasantly surprised by its delicious flavor. Despite the lack of meat, the fresh vegetables infused the stew with rich taste. Gio had crafted an exceptional meal. Satisfied and full, Senna inquired about the source of the delicious vegetables. Gio led her to the backyard, where her eyes widened at the sight of the thriving garden, undoubtedly nurtured by Gio's newfound gardening skill. Witnessing Sina's joy at the prospect of enjoying flavorful meals, Gio felt a wave of relief. While he hadn't received a gift for adventuring, his talent for gardening proved unexpectedly remarkable. During their conversation, Senna accidentally dropped the magic stone she had acquired from the goblin. The stone fell into Gio's garden, triggering an unexpected response. The system detected the magic stone's presence and prompted Gio to consider using it. Given that magic stones are solidified mana, Gio wondered if his garden could absorb its essence, almost like fertilizer. Seeking Sina's permission, she happily agreed to give his brother the magical fragment. As the garden absorbed the magic stone, it shimmered with newfound energy, leaving the siblings intrigued about the outcome. The following morning, Gio was astonished to find his garden adorned with trees bearing meat fruits. While his gardening gift had proven useful for cultivating healthy crops, the transformation brought about by the magic stone seemed oddly peculiar, even to him. Meanwhile, in the outskirts of Arcel, Senna and her companions ventured into the dungeon. The cave swarmed with bats, yet Senna swiftly dispatched them. Sifa and Annie, watching from the sidelines, are still in disbelief at Sina's swordsmanship and are convinced that exploring the dungeon would be a breeze with her at the helm. As the monsters fell, magic stone fragments scattered as well. Annie questioned the value of these seemingly insignificant fragments, to which Senna explained they were souvenirs for her brother. Concerned about Gio's well-being since the festival, Sifa inquired about his state of mind, recalling his apparent disappointment with the gardening gift. Senna cheerfully reassured them of Gio's potential, playfully suggesting he could conquer the world with his unique skill. Sifa and Annie exchanged puzzled glances at Sina's unwavering confidence. Could gardening truly lead to world domination? Back at their residence, Senna informed Gio of Sifa and Annie's impending visit, prompting Gio into a panic as he scrambled in urgency to tidy up their home. However, deep down, his anxiety stemmed from a desire to impress Sifa, whose quiet demeanor posed a challenge unlike the lively Annie. Senna mentioned their curiosity about Gio's garden, sparking an idea in Gio's mind. He resolved to prepare a delightful meal using vegetables from his garden, having observed Sifa's appreciation for good food during mealtimes. Armed with Sina's magic stones, Gio reached level 3 in gardening. Utilizing the stones, his garden expanded, providing more space and introducing new crops. Among these were unfamiliar varieties. Intrigued by these unique new crops, he expanded the garden to include sweet potatoes. Upon cooking and tasting them, he discovered a new, delicious sweet crop with a texture similar to a potato but dessert-like in flavor. Sina's enthusiasm for the new flavor inspired her to promise more magic stones to aid Gio's cultivation efforts, rapidly advancing his gardening skills. The day of Sifa and Annie's visit arrived, and they were warmly welcomed into Gio's home. Gio's attention seemed fixated on welcoming Sifa, inadvertently leaving Annie feeling somewhat overlooked. Eager to witness the wonders Senna had described, the guests expressed their eagerness to see the garden firsthand. Gio, downplaying Sina's enthusiastic praises, led them to the backyard where a breathtaking sight awaited. The entire backyard had been transformed into a lush garden, teeming with plump, healthy vegetables and exotic crops. Annie, visibly shocked, questioned if this was part of Gio's gift, to which he confirmed. He modestly omitted the fact that he could now even build a fence, a skill he had acquired through leveling up. Annie, previously skeptical, now openly admitted her initial ridicule, genuinely impressed by Gio's transformation of his home gardening gift into something extraordinary. Gio, hopeful for Sifa's approval, glanced her way, only to find her expression unchanged, a blank canvas, revealing nothing of her thoughts. Undeterred, Gio decided to unveil his trump card, a meal made from the garden's produce. But before proceeding, he showcased a rather bizarre creation, the meat tree. Chunks of meat hung from its branches, ready to be harvested, leaving Sifa and Annie dumbfounded. As Gio harvested the meat, Annie, unnerved by the surreal sight, expressed her reluctance to consume it, seeking reassurance from Sifa. Despite Annie's apprehension, Sifa, unperturbed by the peculiarity, expressed her willingness to try the meat, reassuring Annie that it was part of Gio's gift and therefore safe to eat. Reluctantly, Annie agreed to join them in the barbecue preparations. The trio began the barbecue preparation, with Annie handling the vegetables. The crops, once again, flew into the baskets upon harvesting, prompting another round of shock from Annie. As the meat and vegetables sizzled on the barbecue, Gio, anxious yet hopeful, presented Sifa with the first taste. To his relief and delight, Sifa found the food delicious, paving the way for Annie to cautiously follow suit. Senna, offering Annie a barbecue, watched as Annie's initial skepticism transformed into pure enjoyment. Gio continued to impress by presenting a dessert, bringing out a sweet potato tart. A foreign delicacy that intrigued Sifa and Annie. Delighted by its sweetness, they savored the new dish, amazed by its flavors. Senna playfully recalled her earlier declaration about Gio's gift potentially taking over the world someday, to which Sifa and Annie readily agreed. Sifa complimented Gio for his incredible talent, bringing a smile to his face. Reflecting on his journey, Gio realized that his home gardening gift, though initially disheartening, had brought joy to Sifa and bridged a connection between them. Annie, noticing the growing bond between Gio and Sifa, interjected with an idea: why not deliver Gio's crops to their restaurant? It was a brilliant proposition that promised to showcase Gio's remarkable talent to a wider audience. The following day, Gio headed to town to deliver fresh produce to Annie's sister. Along the way, he passed a bustling restaurant with a long line of customers waiting outside. Gio couldn't help but notice the waitresses dressed in revealing attire, attracting mostly male patrons. One waitress beckoned Gio to dine there, but just in time, Annie intercepted him and whisked him into her family's restaurant, Lucas Restaurant. As they entered, Gio observed the once vibrant establishment now nearly deserted and rundown. Annie explained their parents' absence, leaving the shop in her sister Alicia's care, who struggled to manage it. Their conversation was interrupted when Alicia emerged from the kitchen inappropriately attired, trying to emulate the tactics of a competing restaurant. Annie promptly intervened, pointing out the flaw in Alicia's approach. Alicia, disheartened, attempted to convince Annie to adopt the same strategy, given her more ample figure. Annie adamantly refused, casting a wary glance at Gio. Setting aside the antics, Annie and Alicia recognized the urgent need to revitalize their restaurant's appeal. Alicia lamented the lackluster menu and the threat of closure. Gio, observing their plight, reminded Annie of the purpose behind his visit. Presenting a basket brimming with homegrown treasures, Gio unveiled an array of exotic produce, including rice, a rarity in their region. Annie's revelation about meat trees only deepened Alicia's astonishment. Proposing a culinary experiment, Annie implored Alicia to showcase her culinary prowess using Gio's fresh bounty. This would definitely be a far better solution than the desperate tactics of seducing customers with lewdness. As Gio presented the rice, Annie unearthed their father's cookbook, providing guidance on its preparation. Despite initial setbacks, Alicia successfully cooked the rice, thanks to Gio's abundant supply. That afternoon, they opened with a revamped menu. The aroma lured customers from the neighboring eatery, intrigued by the new offerings. Alicia, now conservatively dressed, welcomed them graciously. Annie's decision to maintain decency over provocative attire paid off as customers relished the exceptional cuisine. Gio assisted as waiter, serving the Lucas family special to delighted patrons. Their astonishment at the inclusion of rice showcased the uniqueness of the menu. More and more customers poured in and savored the meals. Gio observed their satisfaction, confident in Alicia's culinary talents and the quality of his homegrown produce. Delighted by the extraordinary flavors, customers pledged their loyalty to Lucas Restaurant, heralding a newfound success. The bustling day concluded with gratitude from Alicia, who insisted on compensating Gio for his role in their success. Despite his refusal, Alicia remained adamant, valuing his contribution to their revival. Alicia's playful teasing aside, Gio bids them farewell. As Gio departed, Annie seized the opportunity to caution him about revealing his gardening prowess to others. She expressed concern about potential exploitation of his abilities and its impact on his safety. Gio, puzzled by her sudden kindness, attributed it to the extraordinary produce. He reflects on her warnings as he walks back to his house. As the days passed, Lucas Restaurant's popularity soared, drawing the curiosity of a passing merchant intrigued by their sudden prosperity. Wondering about the secret behind their newfound success, she vowed to uncover the truth behind the Lucas family's revival. In the garden, Senna visits her brother, Gio, visibly frustrated at the devastation wreaked upon some of his crops. Some have been chewed on and picked out by the crows that invade the garden. Dealing with the persistent crows has been a pain for Gio, given how tasty his crops are. It was inevitable for pests to show up. Senna, recognizing her combat skills, volunteers to rid the garden of the crows. Pulling out her sword, she prepares to attack, causing the crows to scatter instantly. It becomes apparent that the crows easily detect Senna as a significant threat, fleeing at her approach. While it would be ideal to have Senna around always to scare away the pests, she also has her obligations, so Gio must find a way to deal with them himself. Setting down the new magic stone Senna brought, Gio levels up to level 10, expanding his garden once more. Surprisingly, he discovers a new skill available. However, his thoughts are interrupted by a knock on the front door. It's the tiny merchant intrigued by the popularity of Lucas Restaurant. She introduces herself as Laruca Liria, a poppet. She reveals she had done some investigating after tasting the meals at the restaurant to learn where the produce came from. Intrigued, she followed Gio into his home. Gio cautiously dreads how this tiny merchant had been stalking her without his knowledge. Laruca wonders how such a small backyard as Gio's could produce such a large volume of vegetables. Despite Gio's attempt to feign ignorance about his secret skill, Laruca had already guessed it. Stunned by Laruka's clever deduction, Gio recalls Annie's warning about not divulging his secrets to avoid exploitation. After some playful banter, Gio invites Laruka inside and offers her a sample of his homegrown apples. Impressed by their taste, Laruka proposes a business deal, acting as an intermediary for Gio to make deals with more people and shops. While Gio is initially uneasy, Laruka assures him that puppets like her are not into dirty businesses and suggests a magical vow to keep their secrets safe. With his mind at ease, Gio agrees to Laruka's deal, and a binding magical contract is established. He then invites Laruka to his backyard and showcases his home garden. Laruka is left stunned at the extraordinary crops, especially the trees bearing meat. As Gio explains how his home garden skill works, Laruka is speechless. With this knowledge, she begins to envision a very prosperous future ahead and internally turns into a merchant who just struck gold. But she keeps that all in her head. Gio notices this other side of Laruka but does not give it much thought. He casually tells her more details about how much he can grow and more ridiculous crops he can grow. While he can grow meat, recently he is able to grow fish, another piece of information that stuns the merchant. The fish grow like mushrooms on the ground that sprout whenever they are ready for harvest, a sight that leads Laruka to question her sanity. Gio's dilemma on the fish, however, was that he had no idea how to cook them since fish are a rare food on Arcel, which is inland and far from the sea. This is also the reason he did not opt to grow more of them. However, Laruka provides a solution as she is knowledgeable in cooking fish. Being a traveling merchant, she had learned various skills during her trades in seafood. Gio agrees to let Laruka prepare the fish and asks if she could also teach him how. She cooks a variety of fish dishes that looked very tasty. They taste them and it was too good. Even Laruka, who was familiar with the dishes, was amazed at the ridiculous garden-grown fish turned out. The two immediately bond over the meal and knew then they would have a good business relationship. After their meal, they return to the backyard to discuss more of Gio's gardening potential. One issue Gio faces is the limited expansion of his garden due to the small size of his backyard. Laruka analyzes the situation and realizes that if Gio had a larger space to cultivate, it would undoubtedly boost their enterprise. As they talk, the pesky crows return to harass Gio and his garden crops. The sight of the fish growing in the garden attracts them even more, as they are tastier than the vegetables. Gio attempts to defend his produce, grabbing a shovel to scare the crows away. However, his attempts are futile as the crows easily evade his attacks, gobbling up his fish. Exhausted from the defense, Laruka suggests he should temporarily stop planting fish to avoid more visits from the crows. Suddenly, an idea strikes Gio. Remembering that he leveled up earlier in the morning and acquired a new skill, he decides to try using it. This new skill is called Guardian Creation. By selecting it, an earth entity spawns from the soil of his garden and forms into a huge golem. Overwhelmed by the appearance of this new entity, Gio instinctively orders it to chase the crows and defend the garden. Laruka is confused about what's happening. Suddenly, Gio can summon a hulking creature out of his garden. The golem charges towards the crows, gnawing at the vegetables, and although the crows fight back, the golem proves formidable. It whacks and pummels the crows until they are finally scared away. Gio is thrilled to finally have a solution to his pest problem. Stunned by the implications of Gio's incredible skills, Laruka ponders the possibility of someone with ill intent exploiting them. However, having bonded with the good-natured Gio, she is confident that the skill is in good hands. She bids farewell to Gio to attend to her other business deals and is not seen for a few days. Senna returns home, delighted to find her brother with the summoned golem, and relieved there's now someone to defend the garden when she is away. A few days later, Laruka returns with good news for Gio. She informs him that she has bought the unoccupied property behind his house and is giving it to him for free. Gio is speechless. Laruka explains that it is a practical move to help Gio expand his garden and increase his yield. Although Gio can't believe Laruka's level of investment in him, she trusts him as a person with a good heart. Gio agrees to make use of the new plot of land and shakes Laruka's hand. Laruka suggests arranging the demolition of the abandoned house to make space for the garden. However, Gio proposes a better and more convenient solution. Since the property now belongs to him, the garden system can take over it as well, making it easier to prepare for cultivation. Gio orders the system to designate gardens and build a fence, and in the blink of an eye, they are sorted out and prepared. The abandoned house disappears, and the garden plot instantly materializes. Laruka is once again stunned at the extent of Gio's skill. It is indeed an outrageous gift. Before leaving, she gives Gio his share of the profit from the produce, leaving him shocked at the amount of money he received. Thank you for watching. Do you like this manga so far? We'll be back for part 2 very soon. Please like and subscribe to JockJut Manhwa for more amazing videos. Welcome back. This is part 2 of I Grew the Greatest Home Garden with My OP Cultivation Skill. Senna returned home to find her brother's garden significantly expanded. Gio explained that Laruka had given him the property, allowing him to grow a wider variety of crops. Among the assortment of crops, Gio noticed a particular variety called aim, grown specifically for medicinal purposes. It was a special herb used in creating healing potions. Senna mentioned that their usual apothecary had been struggling to procure medicinal herbs and was running low on healing potions. Recognizing the importance of healing potions for adventurers, Gio thought about helping Sifa by utilizing his gardening skill. He immediately began cultivating the medicinal herbs and delivered them to the apothecary Senna mentioned. However, upon arrival, Gio was taken aback by the dilapidated and eerie appearance of the shop, almost resembling a haunted house. Inside, he was greeted by a voice and introduced himself to Dennis, the shopkeeper's assistant, who was awkwardly dressed as a maid. Gio couldn't help but sense Dennis's discomfort, suspecting that he had been forced into the humiliating attire. Their conversation was interrupted by the arrival of Marlene, the shop's owner, who greeted Gio. To Gio's surprise, he discovered that Dennis was actually a boy, explaining the earlier awkwardness. It became evident that Marlene had a peculiar fixation on femboys, which explained Dennis's reluctant compliance with wearing the maid costume. Feeling uneasy about the situation, Gio decided to leave, but Dennis stopped him to inquire about his visit. Putting aside the awkwardness, Gio showed them the bag full of medicinal ingredients. Marlene and Dennis were shocked by the abundance of aim, and Marlene recognized its excellent quality, which could lead to the creation of higher-grade potions. With Marlene's gift of doctor's judgment, she could discern and create potions based on the quality of the ingredients. Although Dennis wondered how Gio acquired so much aim, Gio chose to keep it a secret for the time being. However, he requested Marlene to prioritize selling the potions to Senna and Sifa's party, offering them at a discounted price. Marlene agreed, and Gio left, knowing that Sifa would be pleased with the new potions. At the garden, Senna excitedly discussed the new batch of potions from the apothecary, suspecting her brother's involvement. Upon hearing that Sifa was pleased and wanted to thank him, Gio's face lit up with joy. With the new potions, Sina's party ventured deeper into dungeons, and Sina's swordsmanship improved significantly. However, their exploration took a grim turn when they encountered heavily injured adventurers in a cave. As they prepared to administer the new healing potions, they were surrounded by a pack of giant bears. Just as they prepared for a daunting battle, they were rescued by a reinforcement team led by Eliza, a familiar face known to Sifa and Annie. Eliza and her team tended to the injured adventurers, and Annie applied the healing potion made from Gio's aim. The potion's miraculous effectiveness stunned everyone as the wounds of the injured adventurers healed instantly, akin to a miracle. Eliza inquired about the source of the extraordinary potion, and Sifa and her group pointed her to Marlene's shop. With gratitude, Eliza departed, leaving the party to ponder the potion's origin as they ventured deeper into the cave. Meanwhile, back at the apothecary, Gio made another delivery of medicinal herbs, much to Dennis's delight. Marlene, now showing a rare smile, expressed her gratitude as the potions made from Gio's aim had helped numerous people. Acknowledging Marlene's role in concocting the potions, Gio and Dennis shared a moment of appreciation for her efforts. At the garden, Senna continued to deliver more magic stones, leading to another level upgrade for Gio and introducing new skills and crop varieties for cultivation. Amidst the developments, Gio made a surprising discovery, a new skill called Monster Egg, hinting at even more unexpected adventures to come. Against his better judgment, Gio succumbed to his curiosity and decided to try out the Monster Egg skill. Much like his other unconventional crops, the monster seed was planted in the garden plot and quickly grew into a crop, bearing a massive egg in no time. Gio was amazed but also cautious about what might hatch from the egg. His curiosity was interrupted by the arrival of Laruka the merchant, who had come to collect the harvest. Somehow, Laruka had heard about the new high-grade potions that had been the talk of the town and questioned Gio about his involvement. Gio admitted to his role, and Laruka was astounded by yet another of Gio's extraordinary produce. More importantly, Gio wanted to inquire about dealings involving monsters. However, Laruka confessed to only dealing with meat and other monster byproducts, not with actual living monsters. She explained that selling living monsters was rare due to their feral nature, and there was little demand for them since few people wanted to raise or live with monsters. With this information, Gio became more cautious about the monster egg currently incubating in his garden. He contemplated whether it was wise to hatch it at all, considering the potential danger if it turned out to be hostile. Sina's input, citing the numerous encounters they had with aggressive monsters during their adventures, did little to ease his concerns. However, Senna suggested that peaceful coexistence with the monster might be possible, citing examples like Gio's summoned golem. As Gio pondered, he felt a warmth emanating from the egg on his lap, almost as if it were responding to him. Encouraged by this, Gio resolved to hatch and raise the monster that emerged from the egg. Days passed, and Gio eagerly awaited the egg's hatching. He contemplated what the monster might like to eat and what name he might give it. One day, the egg suddenly grew cold, causing Gio to panic. He rushed to warm it up, even taking it to his bedroom and covering it with pillows and blankets. Relieved to find the egg warm again, Gio settled in to guard it for the night. When he woke up, he discovered that the egg had begun to crack. As the shell broke open, it revealed a cat-like creature inside, though it appeared frail. Gio panicked once more, realizing it might need sustenance. Thinking quickly, Gio fetched a coconut-like fruit from his garden, which contained milk-like liquid. He fed it to the creature, which eagerly drank the coconut milk. Once again, Gio's garden proved to be a miraculous source of sustenance. Gio petted the creature, which immediately took a liking to him. It seemed tame and harmless, at least toward Gio. He decided to name it Milk, both for its white color and its fondness for coconut milk. That evening, Senna returned home to find her brother holding an adorable cat. Gio avoided explaining where he got it from. Though cautious, Senna tried to pet the creature, only to be bitten. Nonetheless, they enjoyed dinner together, and Gio was glad to have another member of the family. The next day, Gio made another delivery to the apothecary, this time bringing a rare medicinal herb called chili grass. Marlene was awed by the specimen and explained that she could use it to create a potion resistant to cold climates, the ice-cold potion. This potion would provide resistance to fire and heat, making it perfect for adventuring in searing dungeons like the volcanic area. Senna and her party embarked on an exploration of the scorching dungeon, where the unbearable heat made the path ahead seem impassable. Sifa explained that the areas they were exploring were intricately interconnected, each with a different environment and climate. They had already explored the forest, with the volcanic area being next in line. It was known to be the second most severe environment after the underwater area and had never been conquered before. Annie pointed out that the lack of conquerors meant that the area boss had not been defeated yet. Area Conqueror was a prestigious title given to adventurers who successfully explored an area and defeated its boss first. They could gain fame, exceptional rewards, and valuable resources from monster drops that sold at high prices. But before they could achieve any of that, they had to overcome the intense heat of the volcanic area. Sifa revealed a shiny new potion from her bag. It's the ice-cold potion made by Marlene with the chili grass obtained from Gio. She explained its heat-resistant attributes to Annie and Senna, and they decided to try it out. Knowing the potion was made from ingredients from Gio's home garden, Senna and Annie weren't surprised at the unusual effects. Upon drinking the potion, they immediately felt a chilling effect that almost made it unbearable, with the coldness intensifying more and more within them. They hurried into the volcanic area, hoping to balance the freezing sensation within their bodies against the searing heat of the dungeon. Surprisingly, they found that they could withstand the heat, feeling cool and refreshed even near the hot lava. However, they still had to be cautious as touching the molten liquid could still burn them. The ice-cold potion proved to be highly effective. Soon, the monsters of the volcanic area detected intruders and surrounded Sina's party. Blazing hounds charged at them, but Senna swiftly dispatched the first monster with a single strike, surprising the team. They realized that Sina's sword had a cold attribute that weakened the volcanic monsters, making them easier to defeat. They were convinced that the new potion was a game changer and decided to fully explore the area before other adventurers caught wind of it. Meanwhile, back at the garden, Gio continued to grow chili grass to aid in the party's exploration, especially for Sifa. As he explored his skill board, he realized he hadn't tried some of his new skills, including the new defensive wall skill. Curious, he activated it, only to find a massive concrete wall erupting around his property, making it almost fortress-like. Concerned about drawing attention to his property, he quickly retracted the skill. He also tried out the conceal garden skill, but it seemed to have no effect. Additionally, he noticed that his crops had upgraded in quality from mid to high, making him wonder about the potential of high-quality produce. Meanwhile, Senna returned home exhausted from the exploration, only to find their house vanished. Confused, Gio realized that the conceal garden skill was responsible for hiding the property from view. He explained the situation to Senna and retracted the skill to restore visibility. Like the defensive wall skill, it seemed that conceal garden couldn't be used carelessly without drawing suspicion. Concerned for Sina's exhaustion, Gio realized this was partly due to their prolonged exploration caused by the ice-cold potion and promised to cook a feast as a reward once they successfully conquered the volcanic area. Continuing their exploration, the party finally reached the lair of the area boss, Volcano. A monstrous reptile armed with a crystallized rock formation as a weapon. With careful planning and the aid of the ice potions, they launched their attack. Senna, empowered by Sifa's buff, faced the boss head-on, while Annie waited for the opportune moment to strike from behind. Despite the boss's ferocity, Sina's ice potion-imbued sword repelled its fiery attacks. With a well-timed assault from Annie, they realized the boss could be defeated, marking a significant breakthrough in their exploration. After their successful exploration of the volcanic area, Sifa and her party headed to the Adventurers Guild to file a full report. Presenting a piece of scale from the volcanic area boss, Sifa clarified that they had defeated the boss and considered it a subjugation report. The receptionist was astounded by this remarkable achievement, especially coming from a party of 3 young girls, one of whom was a newbie. Annie disclosed the existence of the ice potion to facilitate the recovery team's retrieval of the boss's body, which was too heavy for the girls to carry. This revelation startled the receptionist, who promptly informed the guild leader. Other adventurers, eager to experience the effects of the ice potion, were amazed by its heat-resistant properties. Led by the girls, the recovery team located the carcass of the fallen boss, confirming the validity of their claim. As a result of their successful expedition, Senna brought back numerous magic stones for her brother, which he used to upgrade his home garden. This upgrade unlocked a new skill and astonishingly introduced ores such as copper, iron, gold, and various minerals for cultivation. Overwhelmed by this development, Gio chose to temporarily set aside thoughts about the implications, recognizing the potential absurdity of the situation. With the promise of a feast from Gio, Alicia's culinary skills transformed the table into a display of delectable dishes made from Gio's home garden produce. Gio proudly introduced a new dish, burgers, crafted from the recently unlocked high-quality crops. The girls were captivated by the rich flavors and devoured the burgers eagerly, prompting Gio to wonder if the potent crops posed a danger if introduced to the wider world. Grateful for the delicious meal, the girls expressed their appreciation to Gio, acknowledging his significant contribution despite his absence during their explorations. Gio, initially envious, realized he played a vital role through his crops, feeling a sense of relief and acceptance as part of the team. As the friends decided to take a break from exploration and unwind, Sifa took Gio aside to thank him personally and invited him to spend time in town the next day. Gio, surprised by the unexpected invitation, felt a mix of awkwardness and excitement about the prospect of spending time with Sifa outside their usual adventures. As Gio eagerly awaited his day out with Sifa, he dressed sharply, excited at the prospect of spending time alone with her for the first time. In his mind, he envisioned a romantic date, perhaps visiting the town's scenic spots or engaging in activities suitable for a date. However, when they met up, Sifa insisted on taking the lead, leaving everything to her. Gio couldn't contain his excitement but was puzzled when Sifa's first choice of venue was the apothecary. Confused by the unexpected choice of location, Gio followed along silently, trying to decipher Sifa's intentions. Inside the apothecary, they encountered Dennis, Marlene's assistant, who initially mistook their visit for a date due to their lone presence. Gio's doubts about the nature of their outing grew, especially as Sifa's expressions remained unreadable. Moving on to the weapons and armor shop, Gio's doubts intensified as Sifa continued to involve him in her routine activities. Their visit to the Adventurers Guild further fueled Gio's uncertainty, especially when he realized Sifa's popularity among the other adventurers. As they observed training sessions at the guild, a young adventurer approached Sifa for a spar, which she reluctantly agreed to, much to Gio's discomfort. As Sifa effortlessly bested her opponent, her combat skills impressed the onlookers. Despite her amazing skills, Sifa declined further challenges to spare Gio any inconvenience. Their subsequent visit to Alicia's restaurant did little to assuage Gio's confusion, especially when Annie's suspicions about their outing being a date arose. Gio confided in Annie about his disappointment, realizing that the day hadn't unfolded as he had hoped. As they walked through the town square, Sifa continued to inquire about Gio's enjoyment, admitting her uncertainty about how to make the day special for him. It was then that Gio realized that each location they had visited held significance for Sifa, and she had wanted to share those experiences with him. Despite the day not turning out as Gio had imagined, he found solace in the fact that he had spent it with Sifa. Realizing Sifa's intentions, Gio's disappointment turned into appreciation for her effort to share her world with him. As they wrapped up the day at Sifa's house, the mood shifted when they were confronted by the dire financial situation of Sifa's family's blacksmith shop. Their conversation was interrupted by a menacing figure demanding payment, signaling potential trouble ahead. The shady person is known as Hazia. He is the individual from whom Sifa's father, Billy, had borrowed money and is now overdue. Despite Billy's assurance that he will gather the funds, complications have arisen from a recent job. The merchant who commissioned their work has vanished. Hazia cynically doubts their ability to repay him on time, insinuating that their client's disappearance was deliberate. Billy harbors strong suspicions that Hazia orchestrated the entire situation to ensnare them in debt. However, Hazia denies these accusations, citing numerous extensions he granted Billy. Billy pleads for more time, but Hazia is impatient and demands the workshop be closed down, as it was put up as collateral. Billy argues that the workshop holds sentimental value, being in his family for generations. Seizing an opportunity, Hazia suggests another form of payment and points to Sifa, shocking both Sifa and Billy. Sifa and Billy are stunned by this outrageous proposal, but before they can respond, Gio intervenes. Hazia, taken aback by Gio's sudden objection, approaches him menacingly. Despite Gio's surprise at his own outburst, Billy prevents Hazia from reaching him, asserting that there's still time for repayment, prompting Hazia to begrudgingly leave with a reminder of the looming deadline. As they contemplate Hazia's true intentions, Billy apologizes to Gio for involving him in their family ordeal. Gio learns of Hazia's deceitful tactics, orchestrating a large client order that never materialized, plunging them into significant debt. Unfortunately, lacking concrete evidence against Hazia, they find themselves in a dire situation. Gio reflects on the situation, noticing Hazia's reluctance to accept payment and his peculiar interest in Sifa. He resolves to assist Sifa and her father, inquiring about the debt's amount, only to discover it totals 500 gold coins, an impossible sum to gather in 3 days. Determined to help, Gio explores various options, including selling his crops, but to no avail. Recalling a dismissed idea, Gio seeks out Laruka at the Merchants Guild. As he explains the predicament to her, he reveals a piece of gold ore he cultivated in his garden, which shocks Laruka. However, Laruka warns against it, as sudden large sales of gold ores could raise suspicions of illegal mining. Instead, she suggests another option. Since Gio can now grow various ores as well, he could try producing mithril. As mithril is rare but typically found in dungeons, its acquisition wouldn't raise eyebrows. Trusting Laruka's expertise, Gio agrees to leave the business dealings to her. With Laruka's assurance of obtaining the required funds within 3 days, Gio finds a glimmer of hope in an otherwise dire situation. Back at the blacksmith shop, Billy reveals to his daughter the money they've gathered, yet it falls short of repaying the debt. Distraught, he contemplates relinquishing the workshop. However, Laruka and Gio arrive just in time, presenting a proposition. Laruka places a special order, following Gio's instructions, with the client providing an advance payment before work commences. She unveils an enormous volume of mithril ore and proceeds to order 200 sets of swords and shields. Doubtful, Billy scrutinizes the order form, initially wary due to past business dealings. However, Laruka assures him that Gio entrusted her with the transaction, earning Billy's trust. Laruka hands over the advance payment in platinum coins, a sight unfamiliar to Gio and Sifa. As the deal is finalized and Billy rushes to repay the debt, Hazia and his thugs arrive, confident in Billy's inability to meet the deadline. To their astonishment, Billy reveals the bag of coins, leaving Hazia dumbfounded. Laruka intervenes, revealing her role in the deal, and Hazia is in disbelief at the sudden turn of events. Attempting to salvage the situation, Hazia claims forgotten interest, tripling the debt amount. Now desperate, he once again targets Sifa as payment, infuriating Billy. Realizing Hazia's true intentions, Gio steps in, strongly objecting to Hazia's absurd demands, escalating tensions. As a confrontation brews, Gio gathers his courage, even as Hazia's thugs prepare to attack. Before violence erupts, Laruka quickly intervenes, revealing the true client as the Lord of Arcel and presenting the official document to corroborate her claim. Shocked, Hazia begrudgingly accepts the owed amount, realizing the risk of further action with the government involved. With Hazia's departure, relief washes over the shop as Gio, overwhelmed by the ordeal, breaks down, astonished by his own bravery. Sifa approaches him, expressing gratitude for his courage and defense of her honor. Billy echoes Sifa's sentiments, expressing profound gratitude towards Gio for saving their workshop. Though stunned by his own actions, Gio finds solace in knowing he protected Sifa. Meanwhile, at Hazia's hideout, his frustration boils over as he laments the failure of his plan. Despite being unable to locate Laruka's base, Hazia's goons identify Gio and plot to use him as bait, setting the stage for further conflict. Thank you for watching. We'll be back with part 3 very soon. Please like and subscribe to JockJut Manhwa for more amazing videos. Welcome back. This is part 3 of I Grew the Greatest Home Garden with My OP Cultivation Skill. At the apothecary, Dennis stares in awe at Marlene's latest concoction. He eagerly volunteers to be its test subject to determine its effects. As Marlene holds a bucket of water, Dennis plunges his face in and is astounded to find he can breathe underwater. Marlene's aquatic potion is another marvelous creation. Of course, the credit for the key ingredient goes to Gio, who successfully cultivated air flowers, a rare specimen found only at high altitudes. As Marlene and Dennis discuss the potion, a customer arrives. Sifa, preparing for another exploration with her party. Fortuitously, Sifa becomes the first recipient of the newly created aquatic potion. Back at Gio's house, Senna grows suspicious of Milk's origin. He's become much larger than any normal cat she's ever seen. Gio attempts to deflect her curiosity, attributing Milk's size to his fondness for Milk, despite his feral appearance. While Milk seems to have taken a liking to Gio, he remains wary of Senna, who longs to pet him. Just as Senna finishes her meal, she prepares to venture into the treacherous underwater area with Sifa and Annie. No one has ever conquered it before. The entire area is submerged, posing a significant obstacle for exploration. At first glance, it appears unremarkable, like a water formation within a cave. However, rumors suggest a dungeon lies deeper within. Their past success in conquering the volcanic area with the miraculous ice-cold potion proves the need for another solution for this challenging environment. Fortunately, Sifa has just the thing, the aquatic potion. The three take a hefty swig of the concoction and dive into the water. Releasing their anxieties about drowning, the party discovers the potion's efficacy. They can breathe underwater with ease, their clothes remaining dry and communication unimpeded. It's as if they were on land. However, as they delve deeper into this unexplored territory, danger lurks. Annie senses their first underwater encounter, a large, rampaging shark charging towards them. But Senna is prepared. Empowered by the aquatic potion, her movements are unhindered by water pressure, and she swiftly cuts the beast in half. With no readily available information about this area, the party must venture blindly. However, armed with the potion, they are confident in their ability to conquer it. The girls navigate deeper into the underwater area, encountering remarkable sights. Aside from the initial shark encounter, their journey has been relatively smooth. The view is magnificent, offering close-up observations of various marine life in all its otherworldly forms. Once conquered, and with the widespread availability of the aquatic potion, this area could even become a tourist destination. As they continue their exploration, Senna spots a colossal entity looming in the darkness. Could it be the boss of the underwater area? They brace themselves for an imminent battle. Meanwhile, outside Gio's house, a group of shadowy figures plot a sinister scheme while Gio and Milk slumber. Milk awakens abruptly at the sound of the front door being broken in. His growl alerts Gio, prompting him to rise. As the thugs enter the bedroom, Milk lunges at them fiercely. He sinks his teeth into one intruder's arm, swiftly dodging the other's attack. Unrelenting, he delivers a barrage of scratches, injuring them. Realizing this is no ordinary cat, the thugs make a hasty retreat. Gio, still disoriented from being woken up suddenly, struggles to comprehend the situation. Milk, however, remains vigilant, signaling that the danger is not over. They investigate the backyard for signs of remaining intruders. As expected, they find the rest of the thugs ransacking Gio's garden. Gio and Milk take cover while the intruders continue their search. With courage, Gio devises a plan to neutralize them. As one of the thugs searches for Gio, a surprising entity emerges from the bushes: the Earth Golems. The intruders are stunned by the unexpected presence of these guardians. The golems, programmed to defend the garden, immediately launch an attack. Although the intruders initially hold their own, the sheer number of golems overwhelms them. Suddenly, the leader of the thugs arrives, enraged by his lackey's incompetence. Upon learning about the golems, he draws his sword and effortlessly slices one down. His subordinates, impressed by his display, regain their confidence. Recognizing the leader, Gio is instantly filled with dread. It's Hazia, the same man from the encounter at Billy's blacksmith shop. Witnessing Hazia's ease in destroying a golem and realizing his thirst for revenge, Gio understands the gravity of the situation. Hazia spots Gio and Milk fleeing across the garden. He deduces Gio's role in summoning the golems and gives chase. However, his pursuit is halted by the sudden appearance of a colossal earth golem, dwarfing the others he encountered earlier. Unfazed, Hazia charges at it, only to have his sword shatter upon impact with the giant golem's armor. Panic sets in as a legion of these massive golems encircles him, leaving him defenseless and weaponless. So before all this happened, let's rewind a bit to understand. Hazia's effortless destruction of the golems sent shivers down Gio's spine. He desperately needed a better defense to survive the night. Milk signaled him to move, and as they did, a system notification flashed on Gio's screen. A new, untested skill. Hazia spotted them fleeing. Gio hesitated. His previous attempts at using new skills had been disastrous, either too risky or with unexpected effects. But he was out of options. Gritting his teeth, he activated the new skill. A single mega golem materialized, but it wasn't enough. Gio summoned more and more, until the backyard was filled with these hulking giants. Towering over the houses next door, the mega golems stared down at the intruders, who were frozen in fear at the sight of such enormous figures. Hazia, his broken sword lying useless at his feet, trembled in fear. Denial couldn't shield him from the reality before him. A giant golem snatched him up, lifting him high into the air. Bent on protecting the garden, it slammed him back down with earth-shattering force. Hazia crumpled to the ground, unconscious. The remaining intruders stared at their leader's limp form, a cold dread gripping their hearts. They knew they were next. In a desperate scramble, they grabbed Hazia and retreated from the terrifying backyard. In a flash, the garden was clear of intruders. Silence descended once more at the backyard, leaving the giant guardians, Gio and Milk, in the aftermath. Gio stood there, shaken but relieved as he realized the danger was gone. Milk purred happily at his feet, and Gio thanked him for his help. Meanwhile, at the underwater area, Senna and her party retreated to dry land to strategize their assault on the colossal monster. Annie was shaken after seeing the colossal monster and realized they shouldn't underestimate unexplored areas. Despite Sifa and Annie's doubts, Senna was determined to defeat the boss. In the end, they decided to postpone the fight and explore other parts of the area first. However, something about the boss bothered Annie. Despite its enormous size, it felt strange. Pushing aside her doubts, she rejoined the party to continue mapping. After finishing their survey, they decided to head back to town to strategize. Fate, however, had other plans. As they retraced their steps, the colossal boss reappeared, effectively blocking their path. Panic had now struck Annie. As the member responsible for detecting monsters, she couldn't believe she missed this giant creature. They desperately retreat, but the boss followed, attempting to suck them in with its massive mouth. With a keen eye, Sifa spotted an anomaly. This seemingly formidable entity lacked the expected aura of power. In a calculated move, she unleashed her Empress Authority skill, designed to weaken enemies. Annie protested, believing it wouldn't work on such a huge monster. To everyone's surprise, the giant creature began to crumble. Sifa's hunch was right. The outcome defied expectations. As the skill took effect, the colossal monster began to disintegrate, revealing a shocking truth. The colossal sea monster was nothing more than a massive school of fish swimming in formation to create the illusion of a terrifying beast. Their illusion shattered, their deception exposed. Annie understood her earlier unease. The sheer number of fish was weak individually, rendering them invisible to her detection skill. With this revelation, victory had now become a possibility for the team. Senna charged forward, and with Sifa's weakening effect, the fish were easy targets. They fought their way through the swarm, searching for the leader fish controlling the others. Sifa spotted the boss fish amidst the sea of bodies. But the remaining fish fought back, bombarding the girls with small but painful attacks that distracted Sifa from using her skill effectively. Suddenly, Senna spotted the boss fish and lunged forward. With a swift swing of her sword, she sliced it in half, immediately breaking the fish formation. Without their leader, the school scattered in all directions, fleeing the scene. The girls cheered Sina's victory and her impressive swordsmanship. They couldn't believe they'd been tricked by such a deceptive monster, but they were relieved the ordeal was over. They decided to head back to town and report their findings to the guild. At the Adventurers Guild, Canalia, the guild receptionist, awaited their arrival with anticipation. Impressed by their successful subjugation of the volcanic area, Canalia informed them of a high-profile individual who had taken an interest in meeting them. Before Canalia could reveal the identity of this mystery person, Sifa interrupted, announcing the successful completion of their underwater exploration, culminating in the defeat of the area's boss. Canalia's voice echoed across the guild halls in shock at this outrageous news. Regaining her composure, Canalia continued her announcement. The person eager to meet them was none other than the Lord of Arcel himself. This revelation triggered a collective gasp of astonishment from the party. The prospect of an audience with such a powerful and esteemed figure left them speechless and wide-eyed. Canalia explains how their success in exploring the volcanic area has boosted the economy. The newfound popularity of the area as an exploration spot has led to an influx of precious materials. And because of the ice-cold potion that made these explorations possible, Marlene is also invited to meet the Lord. Although she might find it extremely uncomfortable given her introverted personality. Given the opportunity to speak out, Senna inquires about Gio's inclusion, considering his role in supplying essential herbs for the potions. However, Annie swiftly intervenes to prevent the inadvertent disclosure of their secret herb garden. She reminds her that maintaining the garden's secrecy is crucial to avoid attracting undue attention. Canalia instructs them to visit the castle in 5 days to meet with the Lord. The group then disbands to enjoy a well-deserved respite from their adventuring endeavors. Back at Gio's residence, Milk remains vigilant, guarding against potential intruders. The recent break-in has left Milk tense and apprehensive about a possible return of the attackers. When the front door unexpectedly opens, they are immediately startled. However, Milk reacts instinctively, lunging at the visitor. To their relief, it was just Senna, returning home earlier than anticipated. Gio's initial shock gives way to relief upon seeing his sister safe. However, the lingering fear from the intrusion is evident. Even with Sina's presence, Milk's aggressive response highlights their heightened state of alert. Gio is forced to restrain him to calm him down. This drives Senna to be curious about what happened, leading his brother to recount the events that had transpired the past week. He assures her that Milk and the golems will protect them, but admits they haven't slept well since the incident, fearing the attackers might return. Senna delves deeper, seeking information about the assailants. Gio provides a detailed description of Hasea's physical appearance and skills, emphasizing the need for caution. Unfazed, Senna reminds her big brother of her training and combat experience as an adventurer, to which Gio simply did not take seriously. She then shares the exciting news about their invitation for an audience with the Lord of Arcel, causing Gio to be filled with awe. The next day, Gio uses magic stones from Senna to strengthen his garden defenses. However, summoning the mega golems during the day is risky because of their size and the attention it would attract. This requires a more discreet solution for safeguarding his garden and themselves. He remembers his untested skills, travel between gardens, and traveling garden. He tries activating travel between gardens, but fails. Moving on, he activates traveling garden, and suddenly the ground shakes violently, leading him and Milk to panic. Thankfully, the tremors subside, and Gio rushes outside to discover their entire property has shifted a short distance. Gio, experiencing another wave of panic, immediately attempts to reset the property's location. While this skill holds potential for defense against future invasions, its visibility surpasses even the mega golems and would undoubtedly attract unwanted attention. Discouraged, Gio realizes all his new skills have drawbacks and can't be used for defense. He focuses on cultivating defensive crops, but finds only flowers instead. Despite this setback, Milk and his golems offer encouragement, reminding him of his responsibility to protect Senna now that she's back. Reminded of Senna, Gio grew concerned about her whereabouts as it was already noon. He decides to check her room, hoping to catch her lazing on her bed, only to find it unlocked and empty. Meanwhile, in a dreary alleyway, Hasea stews over his humiliating defeat at Gio's residence. His fellow thugs relentlessly mock him for being overpowered by a mere child. Humiliated and stripped of his rank, he vows revenge on Gio. Cast out from his organization and alone, he plans to wait outside Gio's house, seeking an opportunity to strike. However, fate intervenes as Senna emerges from the house first. Hasea, seizing this unexpected opportunity, smirks, envisioning her as bait to lure Gio out. Hasea tails Senna into a deserted alley. There, he issues a menacing threat, demanding her silence to avoid being harmed. Recognizing him from Gio's description, Senna confronts him with a deadly glare. Hasea, taken aback by her sudden change in demeanor, falters momentarily. He attempts to regain control by reiterating his threat. However, Senna remains unfazed by his intimidation tactics, playful even, which further infuriates him. In a fit of rage, he draws his sword at her. With this, Senna's demeanor suddenly shifts, declaring that Hasea is the one who's truly in danger. In a swift and unexpected moment, Hasea's sword suddenly clatters to the ground, disarmed from his grasp. A deep gash appears on his arm, blood staining the cobblestones. Bewildered and in pain, Hasea stares at his wound, unable to comprehend what just transpired. He glances back at the seemingly innocent girl he encountered moments ago. This was no longer the same Senna he saw earlier. Her features are now hardened with resolve, her eyes piercing Hasea's soul, sending chills to his very core. This is the face of a protector, fueled by the rage of someone who dares to threaten her loved one. The weight of his actions dawns on Hasea. His knees buckle under him, and he collapses to the ground, trembling uncontrollably. He attempts to stammer a plea for mercy, but only incoherent sounds escape his lips. With her voice laced with ice, Senna warns him never to come near her brother again. Hasea's eyes well up with fear. He realizes the terrible mistake he made in targeting these siblings. His bravado crumbles, replaced by sheer terror. Later that day, a frantic Gio finally locates Senna. He had scoured the town, fearing the thugs had targeted her. But to his surprise, Senna walks up to him with a nonchalant demeanor, casually informing him of her earlier encounter with Hasea. Gio is understandably shocked by this revelation. However, Senna assures him that Hasea has vowed to leave them alone. This news puzzles Gio. Why would Hasea, who was clearly determined to cause them harm, suddenly change his mind? Despite the lingering doubt, Gio finds himself oddly reassured by Senna's confident facade. Perhaps, he reasons, he has underestimated his sister's capabilities. With a mix of relief and gratitude, he expresses his appreciation for her handling of the situation. The following day, Gio and Milk burst into Senna's room, determined to rouse her for a very important event. The break from adventuring had lulled Senna into a habit of sleeping late. However, this was no ordinary day. It was the day of their audience with the Lord of Arcel, a prestigious occasion that Senna had completely forgotten about. Realizing the urgency, Senna scrambles to get dressed and prepared. She joins Annie and Sifa, and together they rush towards the Lord's estate, hoping to arrive before their appointment time has passed. At the Lord's mansion, the group is warmly welcomed by the butler and staff. Senna and the girls marveled at the luxurious furniture and fancy interior design of the enormous house. Anxious to meet the Lord, they wondered what kind of person he was. But Annie glanced behind and noticed Marlene struggling the most with anxiety. Being an introvert, Marlene dreaded the visit and just wanted to stay at her apothecary with Dennis. However, her inclusion was important because of her vital contributions with the potions. The butler led them to the Lord's receiving room. As the doors swung open, a very familiar face was revealed. At first, Senna and the rest didn't recognize her until she reminded them of their encounter a few days back during the rescue of stranded adventurers in the dungeon. The Lord of Arcel was none other than the adventurer Eliza herself, whose real name was Elizabeth Arcel. The group was shocked by this revelation. Eliza explained that a mundane life at the manor managing and doing clerical work would dull her senses and weaken her body. So, from time to time, she took on the persona of an adventurer to maintain an active lifestyle. By bringing her knights along as party members, they too could have real-life combat training. During her teens, Eliza embarked on a journey, traveling the world and rising to the rank of B-rank adventurer. However, following her brother's passing, she reluctantly returned home to assume the lordship. She expressed gratitude for the girls' significant contributions to the territory's economic growth through dungeon conquests, especially their recent success in subjugating the underwater area. Impressed, she wanted them to recount the entire story in detail. The girls, feeling proud and honored, were treated to a sumptuous feast. They enjoyed the delicious food and were amazed by its taste. However, as they savored more and more dishes, they realized the food tasted suspiciously similar to the meals they'd had at Gio's house. This led Annie to ask Eliza about the source of the ingredients. And as Eliza told them, their suspicions were indeed correct. The merchant who sold the vegetables and meat was the same one Gio had been in touch with to trade his home garden produce, Laruka. Learning about the extent of Gio's produce astonished the girls. While Senna felt Gio deserved to be present at the meeting with the Lord, they understood the necessity of keeping his home garden a secret, similar to Laruka's undisclosed source of produce. After the delicious lunch, Eliza moved on to her second reason for inviting them, to give them a reward. Eliza offered them anything they wanted, as long as it was possible. They had not anticipated this aspect of the meeting. While they pondered their reward, the butler entered the room to inform Eliza about Laruka's arrival. Eliza, wanting to extend her hospitality to include Laruka, asked the girls if they were acquainted with her. With their confirmation, Eliza allowed Laruka to enter and join them. As Sifa took the chance to thank the Lord for her role in saving her father's smithy, Eliza was pleased with the fine work done to the mithril weapons. Just as they were about to discuss Laruka, she entered the room. Eliza seized the opportunity to inquire again about the source of the mithril, but Laruka remained secretive. Realizing the mithril had also been cultivated with Gio's home garden, the girls understood the need for secrecy and respected Laruka's wishes. Having learned about the Lord's plan to reward the girls, Laruka was relieved she arrived in time to share her idea with them. They gathered together, catching Eliza's suspicious glance as Laruka whispered her proposal to the girls. Upon hearing it, they unanimously agreed it was a fantastic idea and presented it to Eliza. Meanwhile, back at Gio's house, he had prepared a meal for himself and Milk, pondering what the girls might be enjoying at the Lord's manor. Unaware that the ingredients used were from his own garden, he reflected on the girls' luck in being invited to meet the Lord and taste such delicious meals. After finishing his meal, he ventured into his garden to harvest and prepare produce for delivery, contemplating which crops to cultivate next. As he wandered through his garden, he heard Sina's voice, indicating her arrival, along with other voices that sounded like Laruka and Annie. Realizing they hadn't met his pet monster yet, he instructed Milk to hide in the garden while he greeted the visitors. Gio was surprised to find the whole party, including Laruka, visiting him. They shared some good news. The Lord had granted him rights to some land. Explaining that Laruka had proposed asking the Lord for unused land as their reward, they wanted to give it to Gio to expand his garden. Gio was shocked by this news. The girls could have asked for anything, but they decided to request a reward for him instead, acknowledging his crucial role in their achievements. Each girl realized their indebtedness to Gio: Annie for their restaurant, Sifa for her father's blacksmith shop, and Laruka for the successful trading of his produce. Despite Gio's modesty, the girls insisted he accept the reward, emphasizing that his contribution deserved recognition, especially since his home garden needed to remain a secret. Seeing their gratitude and willingness to reward him, Gio happily accepted. As Gio contemplated the possibilities of expanding his garden, he failed to notice Milk had entered the room. Panicked by the potential alarm his pet monster might cause, Gio reassured them that Milk was his tame pet. The girls were shocked and confused, watching as Milk behaved like a normal cat, purring and rubbing against Gio's face. Upon Gio's confession that his home garden was capable of growing monster eggs, the girls were stunned. Later that day, Laruka led the way to Gio's new territory, a land granted by the Lord located just outside the city. Because of the presence of monsters, no one had dared to live there. Despite their excitement, their anticipation turned to shock and dismay upon arriving at the promised area as a boggy wasteland, devoid of life and seemingly poisoned, greeted them. Thank you for watching. We'll be back with part 4 very soon. Please like and subscribe to JockJut Manhwa for more amazing videos. Welcome back. This is part 4 of I Grew the Greatest Home Garden with My OP Cultivation Skill. The group's expectations were shattered upon seeing their reward. Reflecting on it, Elizabeth did, in fact, grant what they had asked for: land that was uninhabited, spacious, and conveniently located near the city. In Elizabeth's defense, Laruka interjected, pointing out that the place did meet the criteria the girls requested. They just hadn't specified how the land would be used. As they inspected the area, unsettling shapes emerged from the undergrowth. Creatures adapted to the harsh environment materialized, their gazes fixed upon the intruders. Cultivating this land wouldn't merely be a laborious task, it would necessitate battling the indigenous monstrous residents. Needless to say, Gio's meticulously cultivated crops wouldn't flourish in such an inhospitable environment. Just as despair threatened to engulf them, a system prompt surprised Gio. A spark of hope flickered in his eyes. With a confident smile, he confirmed the action. With his confirmation, the system initiated its transformative magic. The girls witnessed with astonishment as the wasteland underwent a remarkable metamorphosis. The marshy bog morphed into a vast, fertile plain, meticulously segmented into plots with well-defined pathways. However, one challenge remained: the displaced monsters, which the system couldn't eliminate. Despite the substantial area, Gio still possessed ample space for further cultivation. As he deliberated on his initial crop selection, the displaced creatures, sensing their habitat disrupted, turned their aggression towards the newcomers. Sifa, Annie, and Senna positioned themselves defensively, urging Gio and Laruka to seek refuge behind them. Unfazed by the approaching threat, Gio implemented a superior strategy. With a monumental shift, a colossal golem materialized, its immense stature dwarfing the girls. Even the monstrous creatures recoiled in fear before this imposing titan. Unlike his home garden situated near the town, this remote location presented Gio with an opportunity to freely utilize his repertoire of skills. Additional golems materialized, swiftly eradicating the immediate threat. Gio then employed a series of previously restricted skills: defensive wall, to establish an impenetrable barrier against further monster incursions; conceal garden, to shroud the land from inquisitive eyes; and finally, travel between gardens. This skill had previously failed due to the absence of a secondary garden, but this time would probably work. He offered a brief farewell before disappearing in a flash of light. From the wasteland's transformation to the colossal golems, the fortress-like walls, the cloaking effect, and his own enigmatic disappearance, the girls were left speechless, utterly overwhelmed by the breathtaking sequence of extraordinary events. Gio materialized in his home garden, a triumphant grin plastered across his face. The travel between gardens skill finally worked. Now he could effortlessly zip between his cozy backyard haven and the vast new garden outside town. He gathers his things, along with some food for the new location. As he prepares to leave, Milk greets him. His monster cat had grown considerably, now sporting a full set of impressive fangs. Sensing Milk's eagerness to join him, Geo scooped him up, teleporting them both in an instant. Laruka and Sina's jaws drop at their sudden reappearance. Milk's eyes widened at the expansive new territory, a vast playground compared to their cramped backyard. He immediately bolted off with Senna trailing behind him. The girls were curious about Geo's new vanishing trick, prompting him to explain the travel between gardens skill. With the monster threat neutralized by the golems, a celebratory cookout is in order. As they devour delicious barbecue, Senna notices a field of beautiful, blooming flowers nearby. Geo explains it's a token of his gratitude for their generous gift. The girls are touched, thanking him for his thoughtful gesture. To avoid confusion, Geo renames his gardens, First Garden, for his backyard garden, and Second Garden, for the new one. But before planting anything, he needs to deal with the monster corpses piled up by the golems. Processing them individually would be a tedious chore, and their low ranks wouldn't yield much. Just as he ponders a solution, the system pops up with a convenient option. It can absorb the carcasses itself. This streamlines the process significantly. Geo confirms the action, and the system whisks away the dead monsters, granting him experience points and leveling up. It's similar to how the garden absorbs magic stone fragments, only this time, the system absorbs the entire monster. This revelation sparks a brilliant idea for faster leveling. The next day, Geo sets up a batch of monster-attracting incense he got from Marlene's apothecary. He then opens a section of the wall to lure the enticed monsters inside. Soon enough, hordes appear, drawn by the irresistible scent. But instead of encountering Geo, they face a hulking golem waiting to exterminate them. One powerful blow from the golem sends the monsters sprawling, leaving behind a pile of corpses. Geo activates the system, and the carcasses are absorbed. His experiment proves successful. He's discovered a viable method for swift experience point farming. Attract monsters, eliminate them with the golems, and have the system absorb their remains. This is much faster and more convenient than relying on Senna to gather magic stones for him. Days later, in the monster-infested forest of death west of Arcel, a group of explorers rests after a day of exploration. A sudden, earth-shaking crash echoes through the woods, growing louder. The ground starts to tremble as a monstrous stampede erupts, sending the oblivious adventurers scrambling for safety. The sheer volume of creatures leaves them with no choice but to outrun the stampede and warn the nearby town of the impending danger. Meanwhile, at the Lord's Manor, Elizabeth is diligently working through her daily clerical tasks as the Lord of Arcel. Her focus is interrupted by the butler, who brings news about the status of the swampland she recently rewarded to Sifa and the girls. The patrolling troops have reported that the area, once overrun with vegetation and monsters, has now become an empty lot. Elizabeth is taken aback by this development, as the report indicates that the area has lost all traces of vegetation and monsters. More intriguingly, the troops encountered a mysterious invisible wall preventing them from entering the area. Elizabeth's curiosity is piqued. She had awarded that specific piece of land to the girls because it was an undesirable plot that could test their capabilities in transforming it, while also avoiding scrutiny from her critics. The rapid transformation of the land seems suspicious and potentially dangerous. Despite her concerns, she trusts in Laruka and Sifa's integrity, even though Laruka can be secretive. As Elizabeth tries to set aside her suspicions and return to her routine, the doors to her office slam open. A troop, out of breath and with an urgent expression, reports that a stampede of monsters has become a major threat to the city. The troop scrambles to inform Elizabeth of the gravity of the situation. Meanwhile, at Geo's secondary garden, things have mellowed out with fewer monsters being lured in, perhaps indicating the monster population in the area had been significantly reduced. Geo has raised his levels considerably, and his garden space limit has been upgraded to unlimited. New crops and skills are now available to him, including a castle wall generator skill, an advanced version of his defensive wall generator skill. He tries the new skill, and his garden walls transform into a fortified structure, surpassing even the city's defenses. Finding it a bit excessive, he reverts the walls to their previous state. Geo then teleports back to his first garden, but the sounds of frantic footsteps and scared screams fill the town as townsfolk try to escape an incoming threat. He finds out from a townsman about the stampede of monsters heading straight for the city, prompting everyone to head to the town shelters for refuge. With Senna and her party out on an exploration, Geo and his pet Milk must fend for themselves. Unafraid, Geo plans to teleport to his second farm if danger looms too close. He learns from the townsman that the horde of monsters is approaching the west gate. Curious to see for himself, he materializes a mega golem to get a better view from its shoulders. From this vantage point, Geo sees the massive wave of monsters heading towards the city. He also spots the troops stationed at the city walls, bracing for impact. Leading the defense is Elizabeth, the Lord of Arcel, giving orders to her soldiers to hold their ground. Despite the unfortunate timing with most adventurers out exploring, about 200 well-equipped soldiers stand ready to defend, their mithril gear boosting their confidence and spirits. The stampede is nearing, and the soldiers brace themselves to hold back the monstrous horde. Thus, the battle commences. Fortunately, their mithril gear does not fail them. The soldiers manage to hold their ground, wielding sharp mithril swords and durable mithril shields. This bolsters their confidence in victory. Coupled with a large supply of mid-grade healing potions, their wounds are replenished almost instantly, allowing them to return to the fight even as the second wave of monsters arrives. Meanwhile, at the town shelter, Alicia, Marlene, and Dennis do their best to help the townsfolk. Dennis uses Marlene's potions to heal the injured, while Alicia offers food to the hungry. Sifa's father, Billy, assists by stacking heavy boxes and barrels of rations. Alicia notices Geo's absence and begins to worry. Despite their concern, there's nothing they can do but hope for his safety. Back at the city walls, Elizabeth feels a bit relieved as their defenses hold. However, she senses the incoming wave of monsters is far stronger than the previous ones. High-ranking monsters like the Battle Leo, Blood Elephant, and Killer Scorpion have arrived. Against these formidable foes, even mithril gear proves ineffective. Forced to intervene, Elizabeth steps in to aid her soldiers. The mighty Blood Elephant tramples through the defense with ease, repeatedly slamming its head against the large gate. Elizabeth's worry intensifies. A few more hits and the gate will fall, leaving the city vulnerable to the monsters. In the distance, Geo hears the ominous banging on the city gates. Realizing the dire situation, he begins to consider escaping. However, as he looks back at his town, he hesitates. He can't abandon the townsfolk. He musters his courage and gathers his resolve. Geo calls Milk and teleports with him to the second garden. Milk is by his side, ready for action. Geo hops onto his golem and instructs the system to move the garden. In an instant, the earth around his second garden rumbles, and the entire garden charges towards the west gate. As the mobile garden advances, Geo's powerful defensive walls and fortified structures move with it, heading straight into the battlefield. Onwards, Geo and his mobile fortress charged, leaving a path of destruction through the trees and soil they traversed. As they approached the west gate, Geo grew more anxious, instructing the system to accelerate, despite already being at maximum speed. The battlefield finally came into view, and Geo couldn't help but consider the oddity of barging into the middle of a battle with his mobile garden fortress. However, this was no time for such concerns. He deactivated the cloaking mechanism on his garden but kept himself hidden to avoid being spotted and recognized by the soldiers. This would have to suffice for now. Meanwhile, at the battlefield, the high-ranking monsters were on the verge of breaking through the gate, and the soldiers were struggling to hold their ground. Even Elizabeth feared it wouldn't be long before they were overwhelmed and the city would be invaded by monsters. However, the troops atop the walls spotted something peculiar in the distance. It wasn't a monster but something rather absurd, a wall charging towards them with staggering force. Elizabeth was stunned by this report. As the charging wall drew nearer, she and her soldiers could now see what the troops had reported. Elizabeth was riddled with questions. This was an incredibly bizarre occurrence. More so, she was unsure whether it was an enemy or an ally. As the wall got closer, a voice was heard coming from it, instructing them to run away. It was an ally, indeed. Elizabeth had no choice but to trust that voice in these desperate times and instructed her troops to immediately withdraw and move out of the wall's path. Geo saw that Elizabeth heard his message and was relieved. Now, the only remaining task was to deal with the monsters in the battlefield. Before the monsters could break through the gate, Geo plowed through them with great force. He stopped his fortress in front of the ruined city gate to block the other stampeding monsters. Every monster bulldozed by Geo was sent flying, even the high-ranking monsters were unable to defend themselves against the roaring force of the wall. The sheer size of Gio's mobile garden had a devastating impact. Half the monstrous horde lay vanquished in its wake. The soldiers, witnessing this incredible feat, erupted in cheers and awe. They were saved. However, the victory wasn't complete. High-ranking monsters like the blood elephant, with its formidable bulk, shrugged off the wall's impact and rose to fight again. The fight wasn't over. Elizabeth and her troops braced themselves for another clash. The blood elephant, enraged by the attack, channeled its fury into a relentless assault on the wall. Gio, however, saw an opportunity. With a swift command, a section of the wall opened, inviting the enraged beast into the garden. The blood elephant charged in with a thunderous roar, only to be met by a waiting party, a gang of mega golems. The golems descended upon the elephant, pummeling it into submission. Taking advantage of the distraction, Gio unleashed his monster incense. Drawn by the irresistible scent, the remaining monsters stumbled towards the garden, one by one. The mega golems, battle-hardened and efficient, dispatched them with ease. Elizabeth and her troops stood frozen between the ruined gate and Gio's fortress. Dust obscured the view, but the anguished screams of monsters echoed from within, a testament to the golems' relentless work. As the dust settled, relief washed over Gio. Most of the threat was neutralized. However, Milk, with his keen senses, was the first to detect a new, monstrous presence. A powerful tremor grew louder with each passing moment. The mastermind, the leader of the stampede, was drawing closer. A high-ranking cyclops, a colossal creature known as an atlas, lumbered into view. Its gargantuan form towered over everything, a terrifying embodiment of destruction responsible for inciting countless monster attacks across the land. Gio, overwhelmed by fear, watched as the atlas approached the walls. He desperately tried to fortify them, but the titan's blow shattered a portion with terrifying ease. The mega golems, Gio's last line of defense, were no match for the atlas. 3 times their size and immensely stronger, the cyclops tossed them around like ragdolls, crushing some with its massive hands. Panic surged through Gio. Teleportation was an option, but if even his defenses couldn't hold, how could the city possibly withstand an attack? He needed a solution, and fast. Just then, the system prompted him with the option to absorb the fallen monsters. With his mind racing, Gio gambled the possibility of leveling up and unlocking a new ability that might turn the tide. Time was of the essence, but retreat was not an option. He confirmed the action, and as the monsters dissolved into energy, a notification flashed on the system. His level rose. New crops are made available, but more importantly, a new skill, the Giga Guardian creation. Hope flickered in Gio's eyes. This new skill could be the answer. He summoned the Giga Guardian with a silent prayer. Elizabeth, straining to see beyond the garden walls, witnessed the colossal cyclops towering over the landscape. But then, a new titan materialized before him, a massive golem, its size rivaling the atlas itself. The two behemoths locked eyes. A battle of titans had begun. 2 behemoths locked hands in a brutal dance of destruction. Elizabeth and her soldiers watch in awe, hoping the Giga Golem will emerge victorious, as the city's fate depends on it. Hope flickered in their eyes, then dimmed as the Atlas started to overpower their champion. A collective gasp escaped their lips as the Atlas landed a devastating blow, sending the Giga Golem crashing to the ground. Despair threatened to engulf them, but then, something unexpected happened. A colossal fist slammed into the back of the Atlas head, sending it sprawling. Disbelief turned to astonishment as a second Giga Golem materialized from the dust. Fear is seen in the Atlas' eyes for the first time as he saw not 1, but 4 Giga Golems surrounding him. The tide had turned. The soldiers erupted in cheers as the golems swarmed the Atlas, their fists raining down on the Cyclops. The once proud Titan crumpled under the onslaught, its roars of defiance replaced by whimpers of defeat. Silence descended after the Atlas' final, earth-shaking thud. The soldiers erupted in a joyous celebration, celebrating their unlikely savior, the mysterious moving wall and its colossal champions. Elizabeth, a relieved smile gracing her lips, watched as the wall began to move again. It vanished into the distance, taking the Atlas corpse and the Giga Golems with it. The direction it took was unmistakable, the land she had gifted Laruka and the girls. A flicker of suspicion crossed her mind, a suspicion she quickly dismissed as ridiculous. There was no way. Back in the second garden, Gio let out a sigh of relief. The battle was over, and the city was safe. He looked at the gargantuan carcass of the Atlas, a monument to his unlikely victory. Deciding it was time to head home, they set off. The next day, the news of the monstrous stampede and its mysterious end spread like wildfire. People are back in their homes and exchanged stories with a mixture of fear and awe. As Gio walked through the town, he was met with grateful smiles, a stark contrast to the anxiety that had gripped the city just yesterday. Reaching Alicia's restaurant, he was greeted with a warm hug. Alicia, relieved to see him safe, asked him about his whereabouts during the crisis. Gio quickly thought of an alibi, claiming he had simply found refuge in another shelter. Alicia decided to celebrate their survival with a special pancake breakfast made from Gio's fresh produce. As Gio savored the meal, Senna, Annie, and Sifa burst through the restaurant doors, oblivious to the drama that had unfolded. Gio had to fill them in on the events of the previous day. The rumor about the moving wall and the giant golems had reached even Alicia's ears, and she relayed the details with a hint of amusement. Gio, his cheeks burning slightly, tried to appear nonchalant as Annie glared at him about the absurd rumors. However, Annie, with her sharp intuition, began to piece things together. The meal ended with a mix of emotions, relief, curiosity, and a touch of apprehension. As they said goodbye to Alicia, Annie immediately got hold of Gio before he could weasel away. She wouldn't let him off the hook so easily. Gio, with a resigned sigh, led them back to the second garden. There, sprawled across the empty plots, lay the undeniable evidence of his involvement, the colossal corpse of the Atlas. Faced with this undeniable truth, Gio had no choice but to confess. The girl's initial anger at his recklessness was quickly overshadowed by the gravity of the situation. Here they were, standing beside the town's secret hero and the gargantuan trophy of his victory. The question now loomed: what to do with the Atlas remains? The system could absorb it, but Laruka's keen business sense saw an opportunity for profit in its valuable materials. As they pondered their options, a collective sense of wonder washed over them. Gio's home garden, once a quirky personal haven, had become a source of awe-inspiring power and outrageous possibilities. They couldn't help but wonder what other surprises this extraordinary garden held in store for them. Thank you for watching. If you liked this video, please check out other Manhwa recap videos by JockJut Manhwa. And remember to kindly like and subscribe for more amazing videos.